think that might be something that either, probably not Chaun, but Guante might touch on to you grant folks. I'm really interested in like, so a mentor of mine who I'm claiming him as my mentor right now in this moment, right now. So I hope you see this, Mazi. His brother works for an organization in DC called Words Beats Life, and he and I were having a conversation. He put me on. It's just a small like paradigm shift. He's like, you know, Tish, my work right now, his work right now is about empowering the folks in this community. So he's like, yo, bro, you're a philanthropist. That $2 that you're giving to Words Beats Life so that we can do some hip hop programming, so that we can do a mural tour on bicycles with the folks in DC, like these brown folks in DC, like pay them to do the mural, go on a bicycle tour, yada yada yada, so on and so forth, and all the other wonderful programming that he's doing. Like the $2 that you're giving me so that you can't get on the bus to go kick it with your homies, like that is a philanthropic move, bro. You are sustaining this organization, you're sustaining life in this community, and you're sustaining the people of color in this community. And like, we need to reinvest in ourselves. So I'm very, you know, grants are wonderful and, you know, great. And how can we power ourselves? We have got to power ourselves. Like Sherrod speaks, our thing is power, youth, voice. Power, youth, voice. How can we power ourselves in what we're trying to do? Like, how can we show up for ourselves? How can we invest in ourselves? And can we not see that dollar as an investment in ourselves? Or that $10, whatever it is, whatever the amount is, it matters. It matters. And specifically when you're inside of these sorts of institutions, like as an ED of a nonprofit, like, yo, your $2 goes so far. And it goes so far because it's the only flex money we get. You know what I mean? Like, that's the flex money that we get. That's the money where it's unattached to anything. It's not for this program, it's not for this project, it's for whatever might come up. So like, first of all, look, it's a side note, but it matters, yo. So like, you know, not to throw you under the bus, Guante brought donuts this morning. Right? And we're like, no, we're not, we don't serve, you know, we're trying not to serve, you know, not healthy food. I know, but it was there. So it's like, none of the young people can get any donuts. We gave one donut to a young person because, you know, we're soft like that. But it was, you know, whatever. We just, whatever. So, but we you know, we paid for food. We ordered from Quan Deli. That's a family-owned Vietnamese spot. You know, it's right in the middle of the block where we frequent. You know what I mean? So like, and when he came in, he was like, yo, Tish, it's you. I was like, yeah, it's me. I thought your name was familiar. Yeah, okay. Like, we're investing in ourselves and our community. We're powering our entire community, and folks were able to eat good. But like that's like, thank you. I'm glad y'all liked it. But the joint is like, the grant might not have paid for that. Right. In fact, a grant did not pay for that. That's important to think about, though. You know what I'm saying? That's important. You know, like. That's what we need. We need more of us investing in ourselves so that the regular, because I'm on some big picture, like, yo, you know, first of all, we serve predominantly young people of color who may also be living in food deserts, who may also have had their after school joints cut, which may mean that they don't get that meal. You know, they don't get that after school meal that they've been counting on for 2 years now that the joint's cut off. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real thing. So your $2 goes a long way, you know? So that's what I'm thinking about. And, you know, and definitely like restructuring the way that these grants are. So like pushing back. We do also need to push back and speak up for ourselves inside of these institutions about what we need and how things need to sort of be reimagined. And like our job, we need to be talking to admin. We need to be doing that. We need to be giving feedback. We need to be showing up at these grant panels and, you know, showing out. That's part of what we need to do. However, you know, this is hundreds and hundreds of years old. These institutions are also indoctrinated into like white supremacy, heteronormativity, and right? I think we can create those cultural shifts a little bit faster than we can move these larger institutions. So like, you know, I kind of want to make everybody pledge, what you gonna do? No, I'm not gonna do that, but that's the thing. Like, we have to decide to do something different now.
which I think is beautifully stated. That's those practices. So like, I give big ups to like what you're talking about in regards to the cultural practices that we need to start engaging in now, right? That like from the where it is that you're getting your coffee from, to the ways in which, you know, like that we're so quick in regards to what it is that we want as far as books or other things, right? I.e. Amazon, right? Which might be building a distribution center in St. Paul, so that you can get it same day, right? Which is already going on in Manhattan, which doesn't just affect book culture. But like in regards to those sorts of things, like we gotta change practices. Like we gotta change practices that we can change now. Beyond that though, in the larger sense, which is also something that I'm very interested in, and it's not an either or, we have to start thinking about, these things come back to, like, these questions of power come back to questions about land to me, you know, like, whose land we on anyway, you know? These questions come back to, like, questions of labor, you know? Like, the enslaved African labor that built capitalism, right? And other labor that is also sustaining it now, right? Other exploited labor. So, like, the question about in regards to even, like, what stays around, and like why we see, for example, so many bookstores closing, why we see so much, like, you know, the phenomenon of gentrification, you know, that we got to start thinking about ways in which we build infrastructure, you know, that when Audre Lorde called up Barbara Smith saying we got to do something about publishing, she was saying we got to do something about infrastructure, you know, that women of color are being erased from the record, and that we have to do something in the infrastructure so that that is not continuing to happen, you know? And that work is phenomenal work, right? It's phenomenal work that we learn lessons from, and continue to need to learn lessons from, right? Kitchen table women of color press didn't last long. I think that we need to explore models like that, though. And what was it and why was it that they were doing what they were doing, you know? That we're in a literary town, but in this literary town where we have so many bookstores and publishers and all these other spaces that are out here that are doing the work of literature, you know? Why is it that we so few, you know, in terms of the folks of color and indigenous folks that are represented in those spaces, right? I think that, to me, moving beyond that means that we have to stop looking to those places to do what they haven't been doing in the first place, you know? And then, so that's a question of legitimacy, you know? Does that mean then that I'm seeking legitimacy from this set standard of criteria that says you are now a literary artist? You are now a writer, now that you have said things, you know, in your knapsack, which I'm not hating on, right? MFAs are great. Like, all that stuff is great. You got this grant, you got this fellowship. Like, those things are great. And it's not just like something that's siloed in the literary arts, but I'm speaking of what I know, right? But it's like, if we say that those things then legitimate it, do we foreclose possibilities in other places, right? Octavia Butler was working in a potato chip factory. Henry Dumas didn't have an agent. Toni Morrison went looking for him, you know? So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, who's doing that work? How are we building the places that are operating to do that work now? And I don't know that there is as much desire to do that because of the fact that we're so stuck in wanting to hospice dying systems.
Yeah, I think also there's a parallel between, women of table kitchen table not being here any longer, and this community would never let the Walker go under. It would never let the Guthrie go under. Just like the government would never let the big banks go under. But the government will let all sorts of people, starve, be thrown out of their houses, right? And that same sort of logic actually happens in the art. I mean, 20 years ago, along with a bunch of other Asian Americans, we started the Asian American Renaissance, which actually fostered a lot of Asian American arts in this community, but that organization eventually died. And I feel like if the funding community was really committed to diversity, they just simply wouldn't have let the organization die.
People make this stuff up though.
Yeah.
Like people make these things, right? So like if you're, I just think we have to. I do think as individuals we do need to take some of this responsibility on. You know what I mean? Because like one of the first things when you're going to meet with a funder or whatever is like you have to recognize that they're people. They're people, Tish. You got to maintain that relationship, Tish. You got to say thank you, call them on their birthday, do this and do that. For real, that's real life. And so are we. We are people. We power those major institutions as well. And if they need to go down, then let's take them down. And if they need to be uplifted, then we need to lift them up. Because like when it all boils down to it, it's a set of people. And there is like this historical context too, but like if we're gonna really have a cultural shift, we have to start seeing ourselves as we too. Like Chaun Webster is an institution. We have to start seeing ourselves as that powerful if we're really going to enact some sort of change in this community. Like we have to do that.